Okay, well, welcome everybody. This is our estate planning for everyday people webinar. I have an amazing panel of experts and a special guest, Treat. My sister is joining us for this conversation. This conversation is designed for you. It is a give back from myself personally to our entire community and our community at large. And, my name is Mayumi Young. I'm the CPA. I am a CPA. I am the founder and CEO of an organization called CPA Moms. And CPA Moms, we call ourselves the eHarmony of the accounting world. So our job is to find talented CPAs that are moms and match them to entrepreneurs looking for affordable accounting and tax solutions nationwide. Now, though CPA Moms is a host and a sponsor of this webinar, this is actually not part of what CPA Moms does in the world. This is a personal experience that I had in my life, and it was on my heart, and it was important for me to share this experience with my community. And so this is really a complete give back to all of you. So I'm going to start first by just setting the context and why I was inspired to have this webinar and why I was inspired to share this with you. And then I'm going to introduce my sister, who will share a little bit about what she, her lessons, what she learned out of her experience out of this. And then I'll introduce our panelists, our panels of experts, and then we'll jump into their piece. So I'll start with the most recent and I'll go backwards. So when I, earlier this year on May 20th, my father and his wife died in a tragic and sudden car accident. And unfortunately, they left this world without an estate plan in place. And so my sister and I became the co-administrators, and that was a choice we both made consciously. We became co-administrators of this estate because when there's no estate plan in place, that by default, it goes into a process called probate, which you'll learn more about later in the webinar. That basically means it goes to the courts. And somebody has to represent that estate in the courts. And my sister and I were those two that did that for our family. Now, my sister lives in New York, I live in California, and our parents lived in Nevada. So we're dealing with a matter that's rather complex with multiple blended families, all kinds of things going on, which you'll hear more about later. But, the reality is, the first and most important thing is that there's shock, there's grief, there's mourning, there's a massive loss. My sister lost both of her parents in an instant. She had a 2-month-old and a 2-year-old. This is not something that, estate plan is the last thing you're worried about in that moment. You're grieving, you're dealing with the emotional aspects of what just happened. And so the power of this conversation is so that's all that your grieving family needs to think about, is when that moment comes, and it will, that the only thing left for them to think about is their own emotional grieving process, and that there's nothing else really that needs to be decided upon. You have to figure out, look for, because it's all handled. And this is about setting you up powerfully and your family powerfully to have everything handled for them. So the other thing I'll share is something that started, there was an incident when I was 19 years old. My mother and I lived with her life partner for 11 years, and we lived in the state of Massachusetts. Well, he died only 3 months after he was diagnosed with cancer. And that was unexpectedly fast. I was very young at the time, and I didn't really know anything about estate planning. It wasn't even a question that I thought to ask. I didn't even know to ask the question. In my world at that time, anyone that had cancer lived. They got treatment and they lived. So even dying wasn't even something I was thinking about would be an outcome. And so, when you don't know that you don't know what to ask for. You don't even know what to think about. And so what happened was, in the state of Massachusetts, and every state is different. This is another thing to understand. Every state has different rules. In that state, the rule was, if you weren't married, the state did not recognize you as a beneficiary or someone to be an heir to the person who passed away. It didn't matter what their wishes were. If you didn't write it down and get a plan together that said otherwise, the courts by default give everything to the next bloodline. And in this particular case, the next in line bloodline were two nieces and a nephew he saw twice in 11 years. I had to go to the county court system to find out where they lived because there was literally no relationship with them whatsoever. And when I found them, I did so not because I was thinking about estate planning. I did it because I wanted to invite them to the funeral. Their uncle had passed away, and I thought that was the right thing to do. Well, after the funeral was over, which I planned with my mother, and we thought we would go about our lives and live in the home that we lived in for 11 years and drive the car we drove and the animals that we had that I grew up with, and everything that was in that home was ours. And we thought we'd just move on with our lives. But what I discovered was, out of one brief conversation that we had during the services after the funeral with one of the nieces, who asked me if my mom was married. And I said no, innocently. And within a week or two, we were served with legal papers from them, their attorney, that basically was exercising what turned out to be their legal right to everything. Everything. The house we lived in, the cars, the furniture, everything that was in that house that wasn't my personal possession, my clothing, my personal possessions, everything else was by law owned by them. Now, they had some choices to make at that point. They could have had a conversation with us, worked out a rental agreement, anything, but they chose to have us evicted almost immediately. So, the grave wasn't even cold, and we're still grieving this loss and dealing with the loss that was so, to us, very sudden. We have animals. We have a life here. I'm in college. I'm on a break at home for a break. And now we have to find a new place to live. We have to find a new life. And all of these things happen. And I have to tell you, it altered my relationship to humanity. I mean, sometimes in these instances, when it's not clear what your wishes are, sometimes the worst of humanity can show up. And I'm going to share with you how the best of humanity can show up as well. But in this particular case, it's an example of how the worst of humanity could show up. And what showed up was greed, a thing of, what can I get? It's mine, what's mine, what's mine. They forgot there's human beings on the other side of this, animals on the other side of this. This is our home. This is our life. So not having that wish written down, clearly stated, where we could show them and say, this is what he wanted. We could show the court, this is what he wanted. We had nothing to go on. So the courts by default said it's all theirs. And we were rendered almost homeless. We had to, we were evicted. So that gave me a very clear picture of what the importance of being financially literate, the importance of being prepared financially, of communicating and sharing with the world, the importance of this important topic. And I've dedicated my whole life to different aspects of financial empowerment, education, inspiration, whatever it's going to take to have people have these important conversations with themselves and with others in their life. So they never, ever have to go through this, and no one in their life has to as well. And then, of course, this happened in our life. So I wanted to share that. But before I bring my sister on, I want to say the positive aspects of humanity and what you can actually create in your family so that you can take the worst situation you can imagine yourself to be in and make it one of the most empowered experiences that you can have for yourself and your family. And that came out of just my sister and I have done a lot of personal development work together and apart. And we've worked in an area that's important in the domain of communication, the domain of really being somebody who creates your life and creates your experiences. And we're never a victim of the circumstance that has happened. Life happens, tragedies happen all day long, but we do have a choice in the matter with how we respond and how we choose to be in the face of that tragedy. And so my sister and I made a very conscientious effort. We actually brought our coach on to have a conversation and facilitate a very empowered conversation where the two of us said, okay, this is a tragedy of which we are now responsible for. We didn't plan for this. We don't have the information available to us that would help prepare us for this. We have a big journey ahead of us, and we get to say how that journey is going to go. And what we created was that no matter what, no matter how difficult the decision was, no matter if we agreed or didn't agree on something, no matter what, that we would always be in open communication with each other, that we would talk through every aspect of this. We'd always talk with each other about everything. And the second piece was that every choice that we made was based on and is funneled through this lens called every choice is made with the intention of bringing us closer together. If that choice brings us farther apart, then it's the wrong choice. So anytime we weren't sure, should we do this, or we didn't agree, we got to stop and say, will this choice bring us closer together or move us farther apart in our relationship to each other? Will it make the family come together, or will it make the family come apart? That was the power of every single choice that we had in front of us. And we made a conscious choice, and we declared to ourselves and to our coach that we would only choose that which brought us closer together. And we had several moments over the course of managing this estate where we had to bring that up, where we were like, we didn't agree, or it was a choice that we felt like I could get positional about something like, no, this is the way I want to do it. And then I had, wait. Is this choice going to bring us closer together or not? If not, it's not worth it. It's not worth it, right? And so we have the power. So whether you borrow what we just said, steal it, we don't care. We want you to have it. It worked for us because I can say with absolute definitiveness that I am closer to my sister as a result of this tragedy than I was before. And that was not predictable. Estates can tear a family apart limb by limb if you don't do so consciously. And this was so important that I not lose my relationship to my sister after losing my father and after she lost her mother. That was not an option for me. And it wasn't worth it, right? So please do think about that, what you're creating, how you communicate, how you take on the responsibility of your estate or someone else's is a choice. And take the empowered route, take the higher road, and you'll see magic and miracles come out of it. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to my sister. I'm going to ask her to share a little bit about her experience, what she wants you to take away from her personal experience of this. And so I'm going to turn it over to you, Salome. Thank you so much for being here and for sharing your story with us. I love you dearly, and I just thank you for your generosity. So I'll turn it over to you.
Oh, thank you, Mayumi. It's like, as you said, brought us closer together. It's like when you think about getting closer to your family, you don't expect or consider that this could be what does it, right? But as Mayumi shared, both of my parents died in this tragic car accident in May of this year. And my mother and I had been speaking, as Mayumi shared, I had a 2-month-old at the time, and she and I had been talking about what she wanted to do when they get older. They lived in Vegas. I'm in New York. How can I support them in their aging? We never really talked about what they wanted to have happen when they died. That just wasn't where we were. And from their memorial on, I was asking people, whether I knew them or didn't know them, if their affairs were in order. And when I would say that or ask that, people would say, yes, yeah, I have life insurance. And that was like the end of the conversation. And I'm looking at them like, that's one teeny tiny aspect of what will happen when you pass away, right? People will share more about this in the estate planning. But for me, I knew that I didn't want my parents' death to be in vain. I didn't want the story to end with, and then they died in this tragic car accident. I really wanted them to have a legacy that went beyond that. And so, in these conversations I'm having with people about whether or not, they have their affairs in order, I try to impart on them that the greatest gift that we can give the people that we love is the conversation and then the legal action that we need to take to back that up. It's an act of love, to do your estate planning, and it'll guarantee how you want to be remembered. So thank you, Mayumi, for the opportunity to share. And I'm looking forward to learning from the rest of the folks in the panel.
Thank you so much, Salome. And she'll share more at the very end about what she wants you to take away from this experience. But but really it's just important to have those conversations. I wholeheartedly agree. So we're going to have three experts on the conversation today. The first expert, her name is Alexis Neely. She is though she herself is an estate planning attorney, she graduated from Georgetown Law School. She does have this as her background. She's not trying to build a law practice. She's actually devoted her life to empowering family law attorneys and raising their consciousness around this whole world of family law, not just in the domain of estate planning, but also in any aspect of family law, which I assume includes, when you're getting divorced or you weren't trying to, handle custody of children and all of that. The world of family law includes estate planning. And so, this is an incredible, up-leveling the consciousness in the legal industry. This is so badly needed. So she has a network of attorneys that she empowers, and she helps them put processes in place designed to help us as the client to get the best professional that understands and has complete packages. And she'll say more about this in a little bit, but I really wanted you to know that yes, she herself is an attorney, but she's doing something much bigger than just working on one plan at a time. She's empowering those attorneys who are going to work with clients directly. So I'm so happy to have her on the line and share her wisdom with us. We also have Sherry Blair, and Sherry Blair has a long history of empowering mostly women, but men too, with their finances, whether it's financial education, whether it's, whatever domain it is. Sherry Blair is now a financial advisor. She also works in the domain of life insurance and a whole cadre of other resources that you need to have a very effective financial plan. And as an advisor, she's kind of that hub in the spoke in the wheel and really brings all that together. But today she's going to speak about life insurance and the role it plays in estate planning. And she's really going to help us understand that a little bit clearer. And she's got a long background. She started managing real estate portfolios and has been in the real estate world and has done so much in this domain. But I will tell you, I had the opportunity to be in an event with Sherry on one of her events, and I had a room full of women that I could so feel and hear her heart about how she wants to make this difference with women especially, and really empower us around our finances and our money. And so this is the place from which she speaks, and her life is given to this mission of doing this through this work. And then in addition to that, I have also invited Tracy Cook, and Tracy Cook is an estate tax CPA. She herself is going to share a story about her own life experience and how that actually inspired her to focus on this area of tax, because tax is a big, broad area. Estate tax is its own unique animal. And if you've ever had to go to probate, she also not only does estate tax work and advises on that, but she also does the probate accounting. Now, anybody who's been an administrator to a probate and an estate that goes to probate, all the accounting that you don't know how to do, her company and her team does that kind of work. And that came out of her own personal experience, that she took her CPA and funneled it and focused it specifically on being somebody who serves in this particular way. She's got a long background in history. She's worked with medium and high net worth clients in Silicon Valley since '99, but she specializes mostly in estates and trusts since 2003. So we're excited to have her and share her wisdom as well. And then I'll say one other person who's not joining us. She's unable to join us today, but someone that we brought on whose resource we'll be able to provide later after the webinar is complete. And this is someone my sister introduced me to, and we brought her on. Her name is Alua Arthur, and she is what's called a death doula. Now, if you're wondering what a death doula is, if you think of a birth doula, D-O-U-L-A, a doula, if you Google it. A doula is someone who really helps with the birth. They help the mother with the birthing process. They're there to support and empower. And actually, my sister used a doula, so she could probably explain what it is, if I'm saying this correctly. They're there for emotional support. They're there for practical, tactical. Maybe you need water. Maybe you need a heating pad for cramps. I mean, they're there for whatever you need in the moment where your focus has to be on giving birth to this child. Now, in a death doula situation, the grief can be overwhelming, and yet there are things that still need to happen. A funeral still needs to be planned. Documents still need to be signed. Lawyers need to be found. There are a number of pieces and parts that someone has to be wrapping their head around. And in the absence of having a trustee or somebody assigned that is not emotionally invested in this process, if you don't have that, having a death doula can be as powerful and empowering to you as having a birth doula. And so she's phenomenal. She was such an incredible resource, and I wanted to make sure everyone who may need this resource can connect with her as well. So her information will be available along with all the other panelists and experts on a resource page that we will email you after this event. And at the end of this webinar, I will explain to you exactly how you can be connected with everybody. And she's also, because she's not able to share on this webinar her tips, she's also provided, and I will share this with everyone, a PDF of some of her top 10 tips and things that you can think about and plan in advance. So that is her, ability to kind of give a little bit back here. And in her absence, she shared this resource with us, and I will share that with all of you. So with that being said, I want to turn it over to our first presenter, who is Alexis Neely, and she will share with us her wisdom, and then we'll roll right into it and have everyone, give everyone an opportunity to ask questions, and we'll wrap up the call from there. So thanks so much, and we'll get started now with Alexis. And I'm going to turn it over to Allie, who will work with us and share with us her knowledge about estate from the legal domain.
Hi, everyone. My formal legal name is Alexis Neely, and as Mayumi said, I do train lawyers on a new law business model that I created. And the reason that I did that is really what Mayumi and Salome talked about today. And I know you didn't get the recording, so I do hope that you'll share your stories again, because it's so critical to make sure that when we are doing planning for our families, that we are doing it in the right way. And what Mayumi and Salome shared is two situations where people had not done any estate planning. And I'm assuming that all of you are here today because you want to do the right thing by your families. That's why you're here. You say, okay, I'm going to learn about what I need to do, and then I'm going to do it. So when I started off doing estate planning in 2000, 2001, so a long time ago now, I was shocked and dismayed to discover that the way that most lawyers have been trained to do estate planning for the client families that they're serving oftentimes leave them in the exact same boat that Mayumi and Salome are describing happened to their family, where there was no planning. My father-in-law died when I was in law school, and he had spent $3,000 to create an estate plan with a lawyer in Florida to keep us from dealing with his ex-wife and from having to be in the probate court, because he knew, right, we want to avoid the probate court no matter what. It's costly, it's expensive, it's public, it's totally unnecessary. So he spent the money to do that. And then all of a sudden, we're dealing with his ex-wife in the probate court. And I thought for sure, this lawyer must have committed malpractice. What happened here? And then I go to work at one of the very best law firms in the country, and I find out, wait a minute, this wasn't malpractice. It's the exact same way that we do things. It's in fact the way that lawyers have been trained to do things. Not because lawyers are bad people, and I want to make sure that you're getting that. It is not because lawyers are bad people. It is because technology, the way that things existed, estate planning is actually relatively new for the everyday person. Back in the day, maybe going through the probate process wasn't a big deal, but we've doubled and tripled and quadrupled our population. Our courts are now overloaded. Our systems have not kept up with the ability to move people's assets in easy ways. And so now it's expensive, it's costly, it's a big nightmare for the family. And you know, back then we didn't have word processing, right? And so it's like only the rich could actually afford it, because every time a document had to be created, it was like typed in triplicate, and then you make one mistake and the whole thing, you have to start over again. So all that to say, it's not necessarily the fault of the lawyers, but I did discover it 18 or so years ago now. And I also discovered, so I'm a mom. My daughter is 19 now, but when she was a baby, I had done an estate plan for her. And one night I was out to dinner with my husband, and I was like, what would actually happen if we were in an accident? Yeah, we created an estate plan. We named a guardian in our will, but my guardian lives 3,000 miles away. My child is at home with a 16-year-old babysitter. And who's going to know where my will is anyway? And my will is only operative in the event that I die. What if I become incapacitated and I'm in the hospital? Nobody's going to even be able to use my will to take care of my child anyway. Oh my God, my daughter's going to be taken out of my home and into the care of strangers. That is not okay with me. So repeatedly seeing all the places that traditional estate planning was failing families, I actually created a new model. And that's what I train lawyers on today, to make sure that when you are working with a lawyer, you're working with a lawyer who's going to put in place a plan for you that is actually going to work when your family needs it. It is not just a set of documents that are never going to be looked at again. And that's really important. Okay, it's really critically important that if you're going to the trouble of sitting down and considering what you want to happen when you die, or if you become incapacitated first. And please note that I did say when you die. We all die. It's okay. Some of us will become incapacitated first. And I have to say that I'm like more grateful than ever that today people are actually willing to face it. It used to be like pulling teeth, right? If you think about talking to your parents about it, they don't want to talk about their death, right? But here you are, you do. And more studies are coming out that say by facing death, we actually have better, happier lives. We have better, happier lives. Sherry knows that because she's selling life insurance, and life insurance says, I love you. That is like the ultimate gift that you could give to the people that you love, to actually face it. So as you are coming into this holiday season and you're thinking about, hey, what do I actually need to have in place? It's very important to me that you not just look for a one-size-fits-all solution, that you not go online and try to do it yourself, thinking that you're going to keep your family out of court and out of conflict that way, that you not sit down with a lawyer who's just going to put in place a set of form documents for you and send you on your way. Then you're going to mark estate planning done on your checklist, put that set of documents in your drawer, never look at them again. Your assets aren't going to be owned in the right way. Your family's going, something's going to happen to you. Your family's going to pick up this fancy binder and be like, what do we do now? Your kids could be taken into the care of strangers. No. Instead, what I want you to do is engage in a process where you get informed, educated, and empowered beyond what I can do in this 15 minutes. The best that I can do for you right now in this 15 minutes that I have with you is raise your awareness that when you enter into this process, it is a matter of life and death. It is a matter of life and death in the best way possible, where you get to have a better life because you faced your death. And you know that you've done all the right things by the people that you love, and you're going to sit down with a lawyer, not to create a set of documents, although that will be the byproduct ultimately of your relationship with that lawyer. But instead, you're going to sit down with a lawyer to be taken through a process that is educational, informative, and empowering for you, that looks at everything that you own and everyone that you love, and walks you through and looks at what will happen to everyone that you love and everything that you own if and when something happens to you, so that your family who might have a complex situation like Mayumi's did when she was 19, the right thing can be done now. And again, it's not just like you've gone online and done it, but you've actually done homework before that meeting. We call these meetings, by the way, a family wealth planning session. You should never just be going in for a free initial consultation with a lawyer, a meet and greet. No, you want an educational process. You want an educational meeting. And you want to do homework before that meeting where you gather together all of your assets. And let me tell you why this is so important. I think most of you might be in California. There's $8 billion in the California Department of Unclaimed Property. $8 billion. Do you know how that gets there? Most of it got there because somebody became incapacitated or died, and their family didn't know what they had. So ultimately, it gets lost, and then it goes to the state, and it sits there until somebody finds it. You don't want that to happen to your family. So you do homework ahead of time where you have a time period where your lawyer will give you some homework that's clear. You gather all your assets together, write them out so that even if you don't finish your planning, which a lot of people don't, primarily because they're working with lawyers who don't have systems for making sure the plans actually get done. I had many clients who came to me from former lawyers who they started the process with, just like you're saying, never finished it. Why? Because the lawyer didn't have a system in place to make sure it actually got done. So you go to the lawyer, they give you the homework, you come in to meet with them for a family wealth planning session. In that family wealth planning session, they're educating, informing, and empowering you based on your assets, based on your loved ones, based on the specifics of your situation. And then you tell that lawyer what you like about what would happen, what you don't like about what would happen. And then they, with you, identify a plan and a budget for your plan that is right for you and your family. Not one size fits all, but what is right for you and your family based on your assets, based on the people you love, and where your family's located. And that's the process that I want you going through in order to get your planning done. If you go through that process and you work with a personal family lawyer, and you can find a personal family lawyer, especially if you're in California, we have a lot in California. You work with a personal family lawyer. They will take you through this process. You can find them at personalfamilylawyer.com, and they will take you through their process of educating, informing, and empowering you to make the right decisions for the people that you love. And they will do it at your budget based on your particulars of your situation. And by the way, they will look at things like your life insurance, like, do you have a relationship with an accountant? And then they'll make sure, if you don't, that you talk to the right people, because you need all of these advisors on your side. This is like, you know, a whole family of advisors to support your family, and they deserve it. And they deserve it.
This was amazing. So thank you, Allie. I have a couple of clarifying questions that I think a lot of people may be asking before we turn it over to the group at large and hand it over to Sherry.
Yeah.
And that is, first of all, are you ever too young or too old to start this process? And, you know, if you're not married, you're single, you have no kid, you know, is that?
Oh, I love that you're asking that. Thank you. So no, you're never too, well, once you turn 18, right? So even if you have 18-year-old children, by the way, if you have 18, 19, 20-year-old children, they need their own legal planning docs in place, because if something happens to them, you cannot get access to their medical records. You might not even be the one that's going to make healthcare decisions for them. In fact, a dear friend of mine last year was in a car accident. She's a single woman. She didn't have many assets. She actually worked for me. She had said to me, hey, Allie, I want to make you my emergency contact. And I said, okay, well, we should get some legal documents in place for you, but we never did it because she really didn't have much. 6 months later, fast forward, she's in a car accident. She's in a coma. I get called because I'm her emergency contact. Anyway, we ended up in a conflict with her mother. $15,000 it cost my friend Jennifer, because her mother fought us because Jennifer did not have legal documents in place. Her mother ended up winning. We ended up surrendering. We just couldn't continue the fight. Her mom took her from Boulder to Iowa. It's just a really big nightmare. This woman didn't have many assets. She didn't have any kids. Now, if you have minor kids, you've got to do your planning. It's so critically important. Your kids could be taken out of your home into the care of strangers, even for like an hour or 2 hours or 24 hours. Nobody wants that. Nobody wants that. If you're a single person, you don't have any assets, you just think about like, well, look around your house. Who's going to take care of all that for you? Who's going to make your healthcare decisions for you? This is such a big one. So the thing that happened with my friend Jennifer is, because her mom ended up making decisions like they're feeding her in the hospital meat and dairy and sugar and like all the things Jennifer did not and would never have wanted to eat, but we could not stop it from happening. We're trying to bring her like smoothies, and her mom would not let us. She was like afraid that we were going to put some sort of like supplements in there that she didn't want in there. Fish oil. We want to put fish oil and CBD in there, you know, things that would have helped her brain. But her mom was very against it. So if you have specific wishes for how you are personally cared for, if you become incapacitated, you want to make sure that those are honored. And so that's why I say, just, meet with an attorney who's going to take you through this process of gathering together your assets, getting clear what you have, inventorying everything. And then, by the way, as well, so much of estate planning is not just about the money, right? Right. I mean, my most valuable resource that I almost inherited from my dad was his voice. He left me a voicemail on my cell phone. Lex, it's your dad. Call me back. And I would listen to that all the time. And then there was a day it got deleted. It was like the worst day of my life. I don't have my dad's voice anywhere. So much of what we've built into our process that our lawyers are doing with their clients, it goes so far beyond the money. It's like actually capturing your stories, making sure that your voice and your stories get passed on more than just the money. That's actually what the people that you love want. So we build that into every process because we know that people just won't do it on their own.
And when you find your estate attorney, should you find somebody in your state? Is it important to be state specific?
It is state specific, yes. You don't actually have to work with somebody in your own neighborhood. Some people still do like to go in and meet with their lawyer in person, but I'll tell you what, a lot of our lawyers more and more are doing it virtual right here like this on Zoom. And I was in Southern California. I had a lot of clients that were in Northern California when I had my practice because they wanted to do it the way that I did it. And I was just that one person at that time. Now we do have lawyers throughout the country and even outside the country. But if you can't find somebody in your own local community, because most of you are in California, I think you will. But if you can't, then virtual is fine, but in your state is critical, yes.
Great. And then can you give us a rough budget? Because some people might be thinking this is going to be $20,000 or it's going to be $200. Can you give us some ballpark? And I know because customized, you're not getting some one-off thing.
No.
Give us a ballpark of what a complete estate plan would.
Yeah, you're planning. This is assuming that you don't have an estate, taxable estate. You don't have asset protection needs that go beyond keeping your family out of court and out of conflict. So this is like for the foundational planning. You should expect to pay on average in the range between $2,000 and $6,000. $2,000 and $6,000. If you're paying less than that, now, unless you're a single person and it's like, you're a single person and everything's going outright, you're not building in any sort of lifetime asset protection for your kids, which is a whole advanced topic that we could talk about because there's so much you can give your kids through an inheritance done right from an asset protection standpoint that they cannot give themselves. And it doesn't cost very much more. It's like a huge opportunity. But anyway, if you're paying less than that, I'm going to say that you're getting a plan that's not going to work when your family needs it. It's just a lawyer can't actually afford to provide a plan that is going to work for much less than that. Like they're cutting corners somewhere. So where are they cutting corners? And then it can get up into the higher ranges when we're looking at building in this asset protection. You can build an asset protection for your surviving spouse or from your surviving spouse. Some of you might have blended family situations. You want to make sure that your surviving spouse can use those assets, but when your surviving spouse dies, they go to your kids from that prior marriage. You can build things in like that to protect those assets. You can build in really great asset protection for your children so that when they inherit, their inheritance is not at risk from lawsuits, creditors, their own divorce, but stays protected. They can use it, but it stays protected. So that, that would add on some additional costs. But $2,000 to $6,000 is a general range. And that will get you your foundational planning in place. That will get you a review of your plan at least every 3 years. I like your plan reviewed every year. So ideally your lawyer will have a way to review your plan with you every year. Things change throughout your life. You need to be updating on an ongoing basis. There needs to be an inventory of your assets. I don't want any of you to die and your family to go, okay, what is there? Your lawyer should create an inventory of your assets. that then gets maintained throughout your lifetime with specific direction on how those assets should be titled. You know, my father-in-law didn't have that. So we didn't even know what he had. And then what he did have was not properly titled in the name of his trust. I mean, I'm sure Sherry and Tracy have seen it all with respect to estate plans that are created and then they fail because they're not updated. The assets aren't owned in the right way. Nobody even knows what the assets are. So your lawyer should be taking care of all of that on the front end.
Great. And last question, and then we're going to hand it over to Sherry. Very briefly, in very layman's terms, when we say probate, what does that mean?
Probate is a court process that your family must go through. And in California, you're looking at a minimum of 12 to 18 months, minimum. Yeah, it might even be longer than that now. And when we look at the total costs of that court process with lawyers and executive fees, bond premiums, court, all the things, you're looking at about 5% of the value of your gross estate. So all of the assets that would go through probate. And by the way, that's calculated on the value of your house, not the equity, the value. So you got a house that's worth $1 million, that could be a $50,000 cost to probate, even if you owe $950,000 on it. So it's a court process that is initiated for the benefit of your creditors, by the way, really against your estate, against your family. Your family has to do it. And it can be totally avoided. Everything can happen privately in your lawyer's office with ease, with less cost, with less time, on your family's time, when you use the right structures to own your assets in the right way and take care of it while you're living instead of making your family take care of it after you're gone.
So I'm going to underscore this point because this is what I really want everyone to really get here. In the absence of the estate planning process, the family wealth planning process, in the absence of having those physical documents when you're done with the entire process, there's the default is probate. And estate plans that are not done well, and I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Allie, if you have a will and not a trust, that still goes through probate also.
Yeah, what we say in the estate planning world is where there's a will, there's a probate. Because yes, if you just have a will, or even if you have a trust, but your assets are not owned in the name of the trust, this is where so many estate plans fail. An unfunded trust is what we call it in our legal world, or you set up a trust, but then you didn't transfer your assets in, or you sold your house and you bought a new one, or you refinanced and you didn't get it back in there, or you didn't put your bank accounts in there, or that one account that you had out there and just didn't get handled because your lawyer didn't have a process to make sure it got handled. So we did it, but we didn't really do it. We marked estate planning as done on our checklist and we never thought about it again.
Yeah. All right, we could spend 2 hours just with Allie in this conversation, but I'm going to hand it over, and I'm looking at the time now and going, woosah. So Sherry, what can you add to the conversation that Allie shared? Thank you so much, Allie, for that. That was incredible. That will help people get themselves educated on the life insurance, the role that life insurance plays in all of this, and anything else you want to share.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Mayumi, for all of you other lovely ladies that I see in your sister. Great, wonderful stories to share. And the estate planning information from Allie was great. I see it a lot. As you shared, I'm financial advisor, financial planning, and been in the industry for over 2 decades. I work, as you shared, specifically with women. So it's all about, as Allie was saying, I'm all about informing, educating, and empowering women, teaching financial literacy. And so it's not just about their money planning, it's involved. I mean, it's all involved. And working with an estate planning attorney is imperative. And I often, if my clients don't have one, I will refer some to them. And if they have one, I usually will connect with them and at some point start working with them. And the same with CPAs. Someone's CPAs. It's very important. As I say, we're kind of like a financial planner is like if you think of a wheel and you think of the hub. So there's an estate planning attorney, there's a CPA, there might be for the health insurance, there might be business liability, whatever it is, and you have to just make sure that it's all working all together. But life insurance in that will is imperative. And there's different times that, life insurance is important to all of us. It's mostly, in estate planning, it serves as a source of support, maybe educational expenses coverage, liquidity at death, even to pay taxes or to pay expenses, fund businesses, maybe buy-sell agreements, and sometimes even retirement planning. So life insurance is an important financial planning tool, and it can play an important role in helping my clients or helping clients. So there's different, but as we're growing up, we may not be aware or thinking much of life insurance. Like at 19, what the tragedy you went through, that's quite a story and a perfect example too, and a good reason to have a webinar like this and to share your information. But when you're young, life insurance, and maybe you're just young, you're married, or maybe you're single, you're married, maybe you have a couple children, maybe you're a single mom, a single parent. So life insurance for a non-working spouse will help with important decisions and will help relieve some of the financial pressure. Like a death benefit probably will not last an entire lifetime, but will give the beneficiary time to decide whether to work. Like in your situation, what you went through, maybe it would buy you some time to, get another residence temporarily until everything could be worked out. And that makes a big difference at that time, because let's face it, we're all grieving. That's a very emotionally charged time in our life. And to be all of a sudden faced with these decisions, it can be very devastating. So I always tell people life insurance is key, no matter what stage you're at. In your life, and it's especially vital for a breadwinner with a young family. No matter what, it's a cheap way to build an estate. Life insurance, okay. So if you just start, working and you have a, family, you're a young family, and you haven't had the opportunity to build up an estate, that's a great way. You can get life insurance for relatively cheap, $500,000, $1 million plus, just depending on your situation. And they're used oftentimes by young families, also, even mid-career breadwinners who haven't had an opportunity to save as much or put money away. It can also help in business continuing. Okay, so if you're in a business, you have a business partner, in the event of a death of an owner, life insurance is frequently and used for buy-sell agreements. So under which the proceeds of the policy are used to buy out the deceased owner's interest and compensate their heirs. So let's say, you have a business with your friend and you had this business for 10, 15, 20 years, and your friend suddenly, dies unexpectedly, quickly, and you're not prepared, but you have a buy-sell agreement, and all of a sudden their spouse comes in, or their family comes in and is now part of the owner, owns the other half of your company. Do they know anything about the company? Do you want them as your partner? So that's another good reason to have a life insurance plan. And then there's obviously, the key here, I think, is to determine the reason why the client needs a life insurance benefit, death benefit. It could be used in estate planning, which Allie she talked about estate planning, but it can be used in estate planning. So that means liquidating estates, paying off debt, income replacement, and wealth accumulation. So these are reasons for some of the basic reasons for life insurance. I could go into it more, obviously. It's not as, it seems, life insurance can be dry unless and when you need it, unless and when you need it. It obviously is there to clothe, shelter, school, and for medicine and other things for your loved ones. And like she was saying, it truly is a gift of love. It truly is a gift of love for any of you that have lost somebody, and they have left a life insurance, they have life insurance on their life, and you're paid a death benefit that comes to you tax-free. Okay, that's a tax-free event, and unless you're doing it around an estate, and that's some other issues about regarding that. But that comes tax-free, and that is a gift. At a time when you're gonna need it the most, and it can be done inexpensively, and there's really no reason why not to have life insurance if you have children or a child, if you're in a relationship, if you own assets, and you don't have, it's a way to pay debt off. Like I said, business planning, even succession planning. So it's a no-brainer. And then there's the other part of the life insurance that I think you had talked about, you touching on it, and that is always making sure you do a beneficiary review. And you should do that. I believe people should do it. She talked about estate planning being every year. I think life insurance planning and beneficiary reviews should be looked at yearly, because there's people, they have a second marriage or third marriage, or adult children from this spouse or from that spouse, and then you have this family or that family, and then all of a sudden, like you say, people come into your life after the death of a loved one, and it's like you might not have even known them. And if it hasn't been written down, particularly in the life insurance plan, as a beneficiary, then they'll be left off. And it's more important to have your beneficiaries written down on your life insurance plan than even I often see clients will bring, they'll say, yes, I have a will, yes, I have an estate, and they'll bring their their estate plan in, and it will say, well, they'll say their life insurance goes to their estate plan, and then, or to their estate. And it just so happens their estate's at a place that by adding that life insurance just puts them over the threshold where they're going to have to pay an estate tax where they never expected to. Now that's getting further into planning and gets more complicated, but you should always have a review. You should look at that, and you should look at it with your agent. And if you have a life agent or a financial advisor or planner, I just know that the state of California now, the commissioners of California, life insurance commissioners, are now sending a letter out to all policyholders saying that if you have questions about your insurance, you should talk to either your agent or a financial planner, because there's been too many problems with people, getting information online and assuming that's how it's done, and then find out they're in trouble, or they don't get the benefit that they thought they were going to get. So I'm being mindful of the time. I think
yeah, I know. And I'm probably gonna ask for a little forgiveness here in a little bit. And I want to honor and respect everyone's time, but I also there's so much to understand here. So I'm gonna ask if the panelists can stay on past the hour. Is there any panelist that has a hard stop? Allie, do you have a hard stop? Okay. So I'm gonna stop there, Sherry, so that we can go to questions and then get as many questions as we can from Allie. And then Allie, I'll have you sum up before you have to leave. Tracy, go ahead, and if you can keep yours a little bit short. There was a question that came in that you posted, Allie. If you can maybe respond to that through there while Tracy is communicating her piece. And Tracy, if you can maybe do a shorter version of it, and we'll do more in the Q&A. Dancing with time.
Well, so yeah, like you said, I started practicing in 2003 and saw all these things happen, every year, hearing different stories. And then in 2014, it became my story when my mom at 61 had a heart attack and passed away. And my dad was 70 and my mom was 61. So we were preparing for my father, not for my mom, and she passed away, and we were just shocked. And but my father had had a heart attack back in 2000, and when he did that, they had just drafted their trust documents, and it had been delivered to my cousin because he was trustee. My parents actually told us. And so when my mom passed away, my dad was still living, and he was taking care of her stuff. But I knew that they had a trust because we had talked about it. Well, guess what? Ali mentioned this. They moved from California to Arizona. They had a trust with no assets in it. So my father got to start learning what the probate was in Arizona. But unfortunately, 7 weeks after my mom passed, my dad passed. And so in 2 months, I went from two parents to no parents, and now just trying to figure out. And all of a sudden, I'm on the other side. And people think they know a lot of things, and had been doing this for 11 years at that point in time. But when you are on the other side and you are full of grief, boy, some of that reasoning is not there, and you rely so heavily on the advisors that are around you. And so one of my pieces of advice is to try to, if you are someone trying to get your orders put together, things in order before you pass away, which I hope you are, try to put these pieces of the puzzle all together. Have a tax advisor. If you have one now, ask them what happens to your assets when you die. If they can't answer that question, they're not going to be able to answer that question when you're gone. And so, let your beneficiaries and trustee know, let your trustee executor know they're going to be the trustee or executor. Let your beneficiaries know. My brother and I knew exactly what was going to happen. We knew all my cousins got some money, and then we got to split the rest. And we knew that my cousin was trustee. I told my cousin, go ahead and resign. I'm successor trustee. And he said, well, why, Tracy? I mean, I can do this for you. Let me do this. And I was like, yes, of course. I'm grieving. I don't want to sign documents. It was a blessing that their attorney had walked them through and given them that advice, and it allowed my brother and I to just be brokenhearted. And so my advice to people planning is get these advisors. If you don't have a tax person, you can ask your financial advisor. You can ask your estate planning attorney. If you don't have anybody, walk into a brokerage house. They'll be more than happy to talk to you. They're looking for a reason to talk to you. So ask them, then tell them that you're looking to get all these pieces in place, and I'm sure they'll find you an estate planning attorney. You can use the website that Ali mentioned, but get these people in place. And then as a beneficiary, as a trustee, my advice is breathe. Nothing has to be done that week. Nothing probably has to be done that month. Do the funeral, do those things. But as far as the tax is concerned, the closest something would be done is 3.5 months. So and there are extensions available. So my advice for a beneficiary is to give yourself the time to breathe. You've just lost someone. Do you have those people hopefully in place, but you have a little bit of time. If you really want to do something, go get a qualified appraisal on your real estate. Go get a valuation from your financial advisor. And those things can be working in the process while you are going through that grief. And then you can talk to your professionals and start going through that. But you need to get a little bit of a cleared mind before you can actually start to kind of do those things. Because otherwise, I was a walking zombie for about 6 weeks. And I'm sure a lot of beneficiaries I've seen have come in here and called me the week after, but they're not in any state to have that conversation. So there are plenty of things a tax person can do. We can tell you when the tax returns are due. We can help you. We can walk through. We can take some of that burden off you. But as someone who's been on the other side of the table, know that breathe. Take a little bit of time, because you're going to be a better beneficiary, better trustee. And my other just quick thing is that, a quick estate, in my opinion, is closed in a year. An average is about 2 years. This is not something that's going to be done in a couple of months. And you're going to want to manage the expectations of beneficiaries that are thinking, why isn't the house sold? Why isn't everything? We had 3 pieces of property to sell in Arizona, 3 pieces of property, and one of them had was the house that they had all their things in. We had to clear out 43 years of a life together without any instructions. of what to do with those things. So I love what Ali was saying, because I wish we had more instructions from our parents. I wish I also have a voicemail from my father singing me happy birthday, and it's one of my precious things. So it's there are things more than the things in their house, but it was very important. Oh my God, I just saw that we have 1 minute left. I'm so sorry.
No, it's perfect. Okay, so I have a list of questions that I can ask, but here's what I'm going to offer. I know many of you have questions, and I'm going to have Ali repeat and also type in. Okay, she did. So for everyone who's listening or on the call, you will get an email with a link to an entire page full of every single advisor's contact information. How can you get in touch with Sherry? How can you get in touch with Tracy? How can you get in touch with Ali? And we also included, Salome and I hired a death doula. Yes, you have birth doulas. We hired a death doula. And she's given her contact information. She's available to anyone. She's kind of like the doula. She helps you through the whole process. She keeps us calm and sane and helps us work. I mean, she was a lifesaver. So we are going to give you all of the resources that are on this call. So please don't feel like you got to scramble. If you have future questions, you can get them answered. But I think the bottom line for Ali, because she needs to leave, if you have any other legal questions, is go to personalfamilylawyer.com. That is the network of lawyers that Ali specifically works with and is trained in this methodology. And if you like what she has to say and her approach, then those lawyers are going to honor that approach. You can go there, you can go elsewhere, but I certainly suggest go there first. So Ali, is there a one takeaway, a one action other than what I just said that you want everyone to have? And Jeff will answer your question in a moment.
Just really to go through that process of having a family wealth planning session where you're getting informed, educated, empowered about what is needed specifically for the people that you love and the assets that you have, rather than trying to do it yourself or, work with a lawyer who just does like a meet and greet. Go through the whole process and actually do the right thing by the people that you love, and make sure that your lawyer is working in coordination with your other advisors, with your insurance advisor and with your CPA, so that everything is working in harmony together. Thank you so much for doing
much. Thanks, Ali.
Mommy, I'm so sorry you had to have the experience that you had, and
thank you.
Grateful for you having us. Good to meet you, Tracy and Sherry as well. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye, Ali. Okay, so we're going to stay on for just a few more minutes. So if you can hang tight just here a little bit more. I see questions coming through. So I want to start answering some of these questions. Let's see. Actually, if you have a question, please go ahead and drop it in now. I think the questions that were in there earlier, Ali was responding to directly. So if you have any questions for Sherry, Tracy, and if you have a lawyer question, go ahead and drop it in. It'll still be on the string, and we can see if we can get your question answered after the fact. So take a moment now to do that. While you're putting your questions in the chat box, I'm just going to ask a couple clarifying questions of Sherry and of Tracy. Sherry, you said that you work with women. Do you also work with men if they want to work with you?
Of course I do.
Okay.
And of course I have many men clients.
Okay, we just want to say that
I have
for the record. And, one thing I just wanted to say, Salome and I can attest to this personally with the life insurance conversation. And that is, if a probate takes you a year to 2 years, the costs that you have to pay for the estate are right now. You have to pay for the lawyer right now, the funeral right now. Where's that money coming from? So life insurance could be used for all of those purposes as well. Those are the practical, tactical things. So when people think about, well, I don't have any children, do you still advise life insurance? And why?
Yes, many people will have asked me that. And I always say that if you don't have any liabilities, if you don't have any anything at all, which is very unusual. I mean, do you have any reason for there to be funds upon your death? And if you do, that yes, even the minimal amount of life insurance is important. I mean, do you want to put that burden on somebody else? Wouldn't you want to take care of at least making sure that your things are in order, so when you do pass, you haven't left all those burdens on somebody else, whether it's your family, your children, whoever it is. So yes, I mean, I think we could all use some life insurance. I mean, over the years, I've seen people have $50,000 of life insurance. Now, that's not a lot of money. No, I mean, to some people it may be a lot, but no, it's not a lot of money. But as you said, what if you had $50,000 to go through what you and your sister have gone through to pay some of these things? That would help a lot, wouldn't it?
Huge. Well, I can tell you from our own personal experience, they lived in another state, flights, car rental, food, hotel, all the funeral costs, all the death certificates, which are what, $100 and something a piece.
That's
You
right.
need like 10 of them for each one. Like there's so much cost that happens at the time that you don't know that's there. If you have a life insurance policy, I would say less than $20,000 per person, it's not enough
No,
to cover all those costs. That doesn't even pay for someone's time to do the administration. That doesn't pay for your attorney. That doesn't pay for your accountant. That doesn't pay for the professionals you need to hire to help you. That's just your physical hard cost to physically move, get from point A to point B, complete the funeral services, complete the basic. So 50,000 to me sounds about right when you add in all the pieces and places and parts and yada, yada, yada. So I just think it's important that people understand life insurance is not just for I have children, beneficiaries, and I'm giving them something. Because when we hear gift of love, we think, oh, that's a gift. No. These are practical costs that we need life insurance to cover. And life insurance, when you have the beneficiaries listed, bypasses
that's right.
probate.
That's right. It does.
The other thing you said in here, you said something about the beneficiary review, and I have to underscore this because this was part of our personal experience. So, every family has some nuance to their family. And I will tell you that my sister and I are part of a blended family. We share the same father. My father had, at 1 month prior to his passing, he had 3 known children. My sister, her full brother, my half brother, myself. 1 month prior to passing, we were notified of a 4th sibling. 1 month. I'm 46. Okay. So this is, hello. Right. And suddenly there's another beneficiary. We have no relationship with this person. None. And somehow now they are factored in because none of this was pre-designed. So by design, she is entitled to 25% of his estate because he didn't say anything otherwise. Now put that in your pipe and smoke it and see how it feels when you're in this process of trying to do the right thing by people's wishes when you're not really clear what the wish really is. So you don't know. And children come out of the probate process you didn't know about. You'd be amazed. So I just want to underscore the importance of that beneficiary review that you said, especially with blended families and all kinds of complexity and ex-spouses. You want your life insurance policy to go to your ex-wife or ex-husband?
Right.
That's what will happen.
That's why those reviews are so important. And I have seen that happen. And I've seen somebody bring in their estate plan that said that, that didn't name them in their estate. And I'm sure Alec could speak to this, but the benefit, a life insurance has precedence over an estate plan. I mean, if it's named, if they're named a beneficiary on the life insurance and it's not named in the estate, they'll still get their whatever it is, whatever that percentage is.
And just, Allie's not here to respond, but as far as if a trust doc, when it's well written, you could say, my 3 living children that are known to me, as opposed to saying my living children. Because then when you find one a month, but you never intended to take care of them, if I've had to read these things and interpret them, for how I'm going to prepare the tax returns, and if a well-drafted document specifically says, these are the people we want to take care of, what if we find out one of them is not your actual child? What if we find out you have an extra child? So you can name those people and you can be specific, but these boilerplate attorneys will just kind of spit it in and say, these are the names, and they're just going with a form that you can do where you want to get an attorney who actually is listening to what you actually want and make your documents reflect that.
Yeah, really great. All right, question. How do you, Jeff, how do you know you chose a great lawyer? Rule of 3, get referrals, start with the one that you talk to if you have a connection there, get other referrals from other people who've gone through the process, people they trust, people they know. Ask for a referral from your financial advisor, planner, or tax CPA. We're all now, getting a sense of who's good and who's not. So in the absence of knowing for yourself, start here with what we have, and then start to ask around and do your research and get referrals. Planning for expats living, traveling, working abroad. Is there a different process for estate planning if you live abroad, traveling or working abroad?
Yes, there is.
So they should speak with the financial advisor and an estate planning attorney about the specifics of that.
Yes, there definitely is, and that has to be written in the estate, and you have to set up the accounts, the financial accounts, so they'll pass in a way that whoever they're intended to get, and they aren't taxed from another country or something. You know what I mean? They don't get taxed in a way they shouldn't be. That's very important. Yes.
Really great. Are there any specifics when you have beneficiaries who live overseas?
As long as you have stated the beneficiary, you have to have their social security number and a way that they can be contacted. But no, there isn't. As long as you have that beneficiary information in with the life insurance, and make sure that it's on your documents. You want to make sure that it's on your documents, and you want a copy of it as well. Because if you've made any changes at all, you've just called up your agent, they say, okay, or whatever, you want to see a copy of it, and you want to put it with your policy or your documents wherever you keep them.
And if I can just tag on to where you keep them, don't hide them. Don't put them in a social security box that nobody knows of, or safe deposit box that nobody knows about. Don't put them in a locked safe that no one knows the key to. Talk to people. Like I said, I was lucky enough that my mom and dad had talked to us. We knew where they were. We knew who had them. These documents don't mean anything if no one can find them. And sometimes I have heard of cases where the administration is over before the documents are found. Don't hide these. They're not top secret documents. I think it's best to have a conversation with your family. But, we're talking about all these documents, but if we don't know where they are, what good are they?
Yeah, my sister and I
think that's very important. Just to piggyback on what you said, though, for one moment, having the conversation with your family, that is paramount, and that's part of the financial literacy that I'm all about when I address the women. If you have to, these are things that have to be discussed. And I know it was said at the beginning, sometimes these topics are things that, families don't want to, particularly in my mother's generation. You just didn't talk about it. Or her parents' generation, things are handled. They're all handled, right? Well, it's not that way. It's not like that. We don't all live in a small little community anymore that just, somebody's going to take care of my mom. She's going to move in there with them and they take care of her and everything's, no. So have the conversations. We want to inform and educate and empower people and become financially literate. Yeah.
Yeah. And my sister and I combed through every physical piece of paper in their house, their storage unit in another city, their P.O. box that we thought we had access. Oh God, I could tell you all kinds of things that you didn't. We did not realize their P.O. box came up for renewal. Most of their documents were flowing through there. We missed the deadline. They did not inform us of the renewal date. By the time we physically flew back just to go to the P.O. box to get the documents, there was a one piece of paper notice that she came back with saying, you didn't renew the box 2 months ago, so we sent everything back.
Oh, God.
There is a process to this, and you miss your window. Those documents, we have no idea what was sent there, and we will never know what was sent there. It was sent back. So there are so many little things that you'll never know to even think to ask. That's why you surround yourself with people who've done this and done this and done this. And even though we were surrounded by people, no one mentioned to us, hey, did you check to see when the P.O. box expires? So it's incredible how much there is to know, and communication is the single most important thing. If we can't find it, it doesn't exist. So I'm going to go into, I don't see any other questions at this time. I'm going to go into just wrap up mode right now. and allow each of our experts to say any final words. And I'm going to ask each of them to share, what's one thing, if they take away one thing from what you've shared today, what do you want them to take away? And what's one action that you want people to take as a result of what you had to say? And I don't care if you repeat what everybody else says. If it's that important, I want everyone to hear it 3 times, so don't feel like you can't say it again. So I'm going to start with Sherry, start with Tracy, go to Sherry, and end with Salome. And then I'll complete the call and tell you what the next steps look like for everyone. Okay, Tracy, you're up.
So yeah, I think getting those documents to people, to give them to your tax preparer, give them to the trustee, have that conversation. I think if you do that one thing, and I mean, even worst case scenario, if you have no documentation, have that conversation, because we had to figure out, my dad wanted to be cremated, my mom wanted to be buried, we thought, but once Dad died and we were in this zombie mode, we're like, didn't he want to be cremated? So we had to call people and ask his sister, and even then she was pretty sure. So it's just have those conversations when everybody is not in grief. And I think you will save the people you love, because some people go, I don't care, I'm dead, I don't care anymore. No, but you do care about those you leave behind, and they're already mourning, so please make this as easy as possible for them.
Thank you so much, Tracy. And Sherry?
Yes, I would just say I covered 3 kind of the basics insurance, which is personal insurance, whether it's 50,000 or $1 million, or several million. Business planning insurance. So we talked about that a little bit. Key man insurance. There's split dollar insurance. There's ways that your company can pay for your insurance, but and then there's the estate planning insurance, which is actually, it will pay for, it's meant to pay for estate taxes, planning taxes. And even though that number's gone up with the tax changes, it may go back down. So in other words, what you can pass, like it's 11 million per person. That sounds like an awful lot, but I have clients that with their home and everything, right? Because they were saying it doesn't matter how much you owe, it's 11 million, so if you have a $4 or $5 million home and then a couple other things here and there, it's easy to, so and you haven't taken care of your insurance properly, and you put it into your, into your estate plan, and then all of a sudden that becomes, part of it too. And you had $1 million insurance or more, bang, you're over the top. So, and they're talking about turning it back down anyway to 600,000. So, and then the takeaway, I'm going to say you just need to review. Go do a review on your insurance and your beneficiaries. What your insurance is, who your beneficiaries are, how your insurance is owned. Do you own your insurance? Does somebody else own your insurance? I had a client in here the other day who was owned by, they're divorced now, and he had insurance on his wife, and the client was the wife, but he hands her the policy and says, here, now if she wanted to cash in, if she cashes in, the money goes to him because it's insurance on her. And he gave it to her. It's like he gives it to her. It's like, we're going to have to get that changed in order for her to benefit from it and to get them if she wants to cash it out. Anyway, these kind of things just make sure you review that and review your beneficiaries. Yeah.
Thank you. Awesome. And I'm going to ask you one quick question. I know we're in summary here. Does it matter is all insurance companies, are they all the same?
Oh, that's a good question. I know we talked about that again. No, you want to go to, you want to look at the rating of company. That's very important. So you can Google this because she asked me, and I do have a list, or you can email me, I can send you a list, but you might have heard of them: AM Best, Moody's, Standard & Poor's, Wise, and Fitch Ratings. They're all specifically rating companies. Will rate an insurance company anywhere from an A to a C minus, and even a lower D, but they say, when I do work with my clients, I would never put them in anything less than a B, because that's all about their claims paying ability, how large they are, their ability to pay claims when they say they will. So in other words, if they say that they'll pay their claim within 2 or 3 months upon getting the certificate, sometimes they'll say 6 to 8 weeks, you want to make sure that they have a high rating in that area, because it's, you have the insurance and then you put the claim in and they say you have to wait 6 months or a year and you need that money to pay for that estate planning attorney. Forget that. It's better to pay maybe a little bit more for a better company. So you want to make sure and pay attention to the ratings. And another thing is you see a lot of things online. If you buy insurance from somebody like me, I don't charge you for that insurance. The company pays me for that. I mean, they pay me to get you the insurance. So it's not any different than if you get it online, what you're paying for your premiums online from that company, or you go to an advisor that can actually help talk to you and tailor what kind of plan is best for you.
Yeah, they're really, really great. Thank you so much. I was going to say one thing about that. Oh, so when you're doing your beneficiary review, as Sherry is saying to do, if you have life insurance, check out whether or not you've got a good rated company.
Right.
Check out whether or not your, legal documents are in order, so don't do just a beneficiary review. That's important. Do it all, review it all, and bring it all with you. So very, very good. Excellent. Thank you. Salome, you have the closing words here of our panel, and then I'll say where everyone can get more information.
Yeah. Thank you all so much. I learned so much for myself in this conversation. The thing I would say, I really, really, really want to echo Tracy. It's have the conversations. These are difficult conversations, but I've learned that if you do it over a meal and you and you start it in love, right? Or to say, you know what? I was on this webinar and these people had these tragic stories of what happened when someone they love passed away. Like, I don't want that to be us, right? Like, use our stories as a segue into these difficult conversations, but by God, have the conversations. It's so interesting that the greatest fear people have is of the one thing that's going to happen. Like, we got to get over that. We got to get to the other side of that and understand that there are gifts that we can give those who we love, and really just, how do you want to be remembered?
Excellent. Thank you so much. So I know it's difficult to have some of these conversations. It's uncomfortable for me sometimes because, the fear, I'll say what's put on loudspeaker, the internal conversation that would have me not have a conversation really clear and really straight with somebody. And that conversation is, they're going to think that I'm trying to get their money. They're going to think that I'm trying to, take control of something. And how do you overcome that? Well, if you want to leverage the recording of this, and everybody will get a recording of this because I started it 20 minutes in, I'm going to ask my sister, an act of generosity here when we end this and end the recording, to do a redo of the front end of our two stories so they get the context. And then we'll put it together so we have one long recording. So it'll be a little bit of a delay in getting that recording out, but then you'll get the whole thing. And really that recording is intended to help you with those conversations. If you don't feel like you can segue effectively, you don't know what they think your intentions are, you feel the pushback, because you can feel when somebody's like, I don't want to have this conversation with you. Then you can say, would you be willing to listen to this webinar with me? You can even say it like, I'm trying to do some planning for myself, and I would like you to be part of my own plan. And I just want you to hear some of this information so I could ask your advice about my plan. If you aren't comfortable talking about their plan, they're going to hear, and they're listening to this recording. So yes, you're maybe looking at this for your own situation, right? So at the end of the day, I don't care how you get there so that everyone gets the information they need, even if you've got to backdoor your way in to the conversation. And I know they're not always easy to just be really straight. Not everybody is open, and I understand that, but not doing it is not really an option. So get creative on how you do this. Maybe you have a big family powwow and you're all going to sit around and listen to the recording together or whatever. And food usually helps.
Yeah.
Give people food. Okay, so I'm going to send you an email. And just so everyone knows, I'm doing another webinar tomorrow And if you're listening to the recording, you probably can access the recording of tomorrow as well if you're not able to register. Tomorrow, it's December 11th at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. That whole recording is based on another life event of mine where I had a security breach, cyber security, another big, how do you protect yourself, your business from another, incident that could devastate you financially. And I invite anyone and everyone, you can certainly invite anybody in your life to attend. Once both of those webinars are complete, the experts from both webinars, all the information, their website, their name, how you can get in contact with them will be on a single page. And that page will give you the information you need to be able to contact them directly. I'm not a conduit. Again, this is not our core business. This was just to give back to our community. So I want to give you access to the information to connect with anybody you need to talk to at will. Those emails that email will most likely go out on Wednesday, December 12th, and you will have the recordings for both webinars, along with the page with all of the contact information for all of the experts. So we just want you to share that with the world. Please don't feel like, oh, can I share this with no, give it to the world. Whoever and anyone and everyone. It's for you. It's our gift to you. So with that, I'm just going to close the conversation and just say again, just so touched and thankful that, each of you have dedicated your life to being in service in this way. This is not something you're doing tonight. This is what your life is for. And I thank you for your service. And I thank my sister for her courage and her generosity and her always wanting to be a contribution to the world. I'm so proud to call you my sister. Thank you for bringing your wisdom to this conversation and to this community. And to those of you who took your time this evening to be with us, allowed us to go almost a half an hour over the scheduled time. I appreciate, I acknowledge you. I thank you for taking this part of your life seriously and sharing it and creating that ripple effect into the world to give this away, pay this one forward. This is take it for yourself, implement it for yourself, then pay it forward and give it away. No one should have to go through this experience. No one on this planet ever, ever, ever. So thank you so much. Salome, if you don't mind hanging on just a few more minutes, I'd like to recreate that beginning call. And for everyone else, thank you so much and have a blessed holiday. And may it be an amazing 2019 for you. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you.
And I'm going to add the link to the website where you can register for the security webinar should you want to do that as well. So for those of you who are still on, but thank you so much. I'm going to try to pull it up here. And everyone else, you're free to go. Let me just get that here. It's the same place that you registered for this one, but just to get it out there one more time, there's the link for anyone who wants to go and register for the security webinar if you haven't done so already. All right, again, I'm done. Thanks so much.
Thanks. Bye.